So here's another, I thought, fascinating op-ed, this one in the Wall Street Journal by the Dr. Evil, or as we call him, George Soros. Soros, as I'm sure you know by now, has been funding the campaign of all these reform prosecutors, these guys who won't hold criminals on bail because it's not fair that you have to pay bail if you don't have any money. And some of these prosecutors have taken office in liberal cities. But you have to remember, I'm sure you go to vote and you see who's running for prosecutor. You don't know who that is. I mean, half the time you have not taken the time, and this is as true of me, it's true of everybody, you haven't taken the time to find out who the prosecutor is. So Soros pours money into their campaigns, people hear the name, they recognize, I heard that name, and they vote for him. So it's not really necessarily people buying into the philosophy of the prosecutor, but also they may not know how bad it's going to be. So it's been a disaster. It has been a disaster. They recalled the clown in San Francisco, that Chelsea Boudin, and San Francisco, not a conservative hotspot, not a place where, you've got a lot of people calling for law and order, but too much is too much. They're working to recall the clown in L.A., Gascon. They have a lot of signatures. And yesterday in Florida, the boss, who some of you think is Bruce Springsteen, but it's actually Governor Ron DeSantis, he is great. This guy is great. He is really terrific. I do have to tell you that I wish Trump would just anoint him the next, Trump leader, and let him run. Younger, more statesman-like, really savvy, just doing great. So he suspended a Soros-backed state attorney, which is their name for a prosecutor, Andrew Warren, because Warren said he was not going to prosecute people who gave sex changes to minors, which is illegal in Florida, or he would not prosecute people who violated the restrictions on abortions, which include late-term abortions. He was not going to prosecute them. So here's what the boss said. This is 22.
The Constitution of Florida has vested the veto power in the governor, not in individual state attorneys. And so when you flagrantly violate your oath of office, when you make yourself above the law, you have violated your duty, you have neglected your duty, and you are displaying a lack of competence to be able to perform those duties. And so today we are suspending State Attorney Andrew Warren, effective immediately.
So the guy responded today, Andrew Warren responded today, and I knew this was what he was going to say. I was going to tell you that this was what he was going to say, but he actually said it in the last couple of minutes. He says, Andrew Warren says, people need to understand this isn't the governor trying to suspend the one elected official. This is the governor trying to overthrow democracy here in Hillsborough County. We are protecting people's rights. We have fought so hard for public safety and fairness and justice. If the governor thinks he can do a better job, then he should run for state attorney, not president. The government wants to do his sideshow with his cronies. I'm the one who's upholding the law. So I knew that the thing was going to be, this is an elected official. He suspended him according to a rule in the Florida Constitution, but he is suspending an elected official. So let's think for a minute about what it means for a prosecutor to say, I am not going to enforce the law. You and your neighbors get together and you discuss, you go to town halls, you watch TV, you read op-eds in the paper, wherever. You discuss what you want the law to be. You elect officials who say, yes, we're going to pass that law. The officials get into office. This is called representative democracy, right? This is how a republic works. Your representatives, people you elected, then go to their capital and they pass a law. They say this is going to be the law of the land. The people speak through elections. The people who are elected represent them. The people who represent them make the law. The prosecutor says, I don't want to prosecute that. No, I don't want to do it. I don't agree. I don't agree with the people. I don't agree with their representative. I'm not going to do it. Hey, it's prosecutorial discretion. They have a name for it because it's so bad. But no, prosecutorial discretion is a guy is arrested for stealing a loaf of bread, and you say, well, that's a crime. We got to prosecute you. And then you find out he was feeding his child, and you think, I'm not going to win this case. I'm not spending the state's money. That's prosecutorial discretion. Saying you are not going to prosecute a class of crime is saying that you are the king of Florida. You can make all the laws you want. We are not going to enforce them because I'm the king of Florida. That's what it's saying. It was true when Obama's Justice Department, one of the most corrupt Justice Departments in history, said they were not going to enforce the Defense of Marriage Act. We're not going to enforce, you voted for those guys. They made that law. We're not doing it. We don't like it. We don't like it. I don't like democracy. You know what's wrong with democracy? Democracy is what's wrong with people. So all you people are electing people and having them make the laws. That's bad for democracy. So that's going to be his argument. I don't think he's going to win that argument. I think it's a terrific thing. DeSantis essentially fired him because he was not enforcing the laws made by the representatives of the people, which, surprise, is how democracies work. All right. So Soros looks around and he sees his ploy as being rejected now that they see the results. The people in San Francisco are not conservatives. They just saw the results. They got tired of being mugged. They got tired of mass crimes. They got rid of Chelsea Boudin. They are tired of the crimes in L.A. where seriously, people are just getting attacked in their cars. They're being followed home from the jewelry store. You know, if they're rich people, they're being followed home from the jewelry store and held up. Nobody is prosecuting the law, and people are sick of it. And I remember when Boudin was thrown out in San Francisco, I did a whole show or a whole segment of a show talking about how he thinks that the people that he has to take care of are the criminals, not the victims. Remember, there are very few criminals. There really are very few criminals. The people who create most of the crime do it again and again and again. The people, and it's always the poor people who get hurt, the people are the majority of the people who are the victim class. All right. So George Soros crawls out of his shell or out from under his rock and writes this op-ed for the Wall Street Journal. Why I support reform prosecutors. Subhead, justice or safety. It's a false choice. They reinforce each other. The idea that we need to choose between justice and safety is false. Maybe I should read it in a George Soros. The idea that it's like I just picture him as this crinkly, old, horrible guy. Anyway, the idea that we need to choose between justice and safety is false. They reinforce each other. If people trust the justice system, it will work. And the system works, public safety will improve. We need to acknowledge that black people in the U.S. are 5 times as likely to be sent to jail as white people. That is an injustice that undermines our democracy. Let's pause for a minute. Is it an injustice? Is it an injustice that black people are 5 times as likely to be sent to jail as white people? Let's find out. Blacks, who are 12% of the population, maybe 15% in some places, they commit about 60% nationwide of homicides, shootings, and robberies. 60% of violent crime is black people. Who's going to go to prison? Who are the cops going to send to prison? So there may be injustices that cause black people to commit more crimes. That's a possibility. You could make that argument. But the cops aren't committing them. The justice system isn't committing those injustices. They're happening before it gets to those guys. The cops are always the last guy on the totem pole. To blame the cops, it's like you went to the doctor and you had something on your hand, a little bump or a pustule, you've got monkeypox, whatever. And the doctor said, oh man, that looks bad. Let's paint that over. Let's paint that over flesh colored. So it's gone. It's gone. So you're better. It's nuts, right? This may be a symptom of our society. It's a symptom of something in our society that blacks, who are 12 to 15% of the population, commit 60% of the violent crime. But it's not the cops' fault, and it's not the cops' job to ignore those crimes, right? Who is being killed? It's almost always black males. That's who gets killed. That's who gets murdered. So who is going to die when George Soros' people stop doing their job? The injustice, that's the injustice. The injustice, of course, is that these black men are being killed by the people that George Soros' prosecutors are not prosecuting. All right, let's go back to this op-ed. I wish I could do a good George Soros. In recent years, reform-minded prosecutors and other law enforcement officials around the country have been coalescing around an agenda that promises to be more effective and just. This agenda includes prioritizing the resources of the criminal justice system to protect people against violent crime. It urges that we treat drug addiction as a disease, not a crime, and it seeks to end the criminalization of poverty and mental illness. Now, is poverty criminalized? Is mental illness criminalized? Is even addiction criminalized? I think it's crime that we criminalize. Nobody is arrested. You're mentally ill, you're under arrest. Nobody is arrested for being poor. You're under arrest. There are plenty of poor people, the majority of poor people, the majority of mentally ill people who do not commit crimes. People who commit crimes are criminals, and they have to be punished to protect people, And yes, see, this is the thing. It's unjust that some people are mentally ill. It's heartbreakingly unjust. It's not a punishment for sin. It's not because they were bad people. It just happens. It's intolerable that it should just happen. It's unbearable that some innocent people are mentally ill. Sometimes people from all classes of life become mentally ill and wind up on the streets. And sometimes they get violent. In rare cases, they get violent and they have to be stopped and they have to be arrested. That's terribly unfair. Letting them go doesn't do a damn thing to stop the unfairness of life. It simply puts the unfairness of life on other people who are doing fine, who could be productive members of society, who could be doing well, who could be raising their kids, are being killed by people that George Soros' prosecutors let go free because they cannot bear the unfairness of life. They cannot bear the fact that unfairness is life. In America, still, despite some of these guys who are being, I think, unfairly treated for January 6th, despite that, most people are arrested for committing crimes. It's different in England, by the way, where you're arrested for tweeting. Did you see? I don't know if you saw the story. A 51-year-old British Army veteran, this is a tangent, but still, Darren Brady, who shared the meme of the pride flag as a swastika because he felt that gay pride, these 6 months of gay pride, there it is, swastika, rainbow flag. He felt that gay pride was being pushed down people's throats in an authoritarian way. So he retweeted a gay pride swastika. The police show up at his house and they arrest him for it, this Army veteran. Here's a video that went viral.
British Hampshire police would realise how ridiculous this is. It is ridiculous. It is. Good. I'm happy to come to this.
What did it need to come to?
Tell us why you escalated it to this level. Because I don't understand. I posted something that he posted. You come to arrest me. You don't arrest him. Why has it come to this? Why am I in cuffs? Because there's something he shared, then I shared.
Because someone has been caused, obviously, anxiety based upon your social media page. That's
not his.
Why you've been arrested.
He's brought out in cuffs because someone felt anxiety because of his tweet. That's why they cuffed him in England. That hasn't come here yet. Obviously, we're not immune, but it hasn't come here yet. He's arrested because someone was caused anxiety. Your feelings are everything. Just like your feelings give life to a baby, give humanity to a baby, feelings of anxiety are reason to arrest somebody who caused you that anxiety. I mean, if people who caused me anxiety were arrested, almost the entire government would be in prison. All right, so here you get arrested for crimes most of the time. Black people commit an inordinate number of the crimes, but they also get hurt by those crimes. The innocent black people get hurt by those crimes as well. You can't fix the injustice, at least not on the level of the streets. You can't fix that injustice on the streets. If there's injustice down the line toward the cause place, maybe you can fix that by giving people opportunities, education, which the left is totally against. That may be the way to do it. But you can't do it by blaming the poor cop who's just fixing the problem once it has arrived. The cop is like a surgeon. He gets the problem once it has to be cut out. All right, more Soros. Some politicians and pundits have tried to blame the recent spikes in crime on policies of reform-minded prosecutors. The research I've seen says otherwise. The most rigorous academic study analyzing data across 35 jurisdictions shows no connection between the election of reform-minded prosecutors and local crime rates. One of these reform-minded prosecutors is in Philadelphia. Philadelphia it's got skyrocketing crime. Its murders have gone up more than any other city. According to the FBI's annual Uniform Crime Report, the country saw a 30% increase in homicides in 2020, the largest single-year spike since they began recording crime statistics 60 years ago. These are happening in New York, where there are Soros prosecutors. They're happening in Philadelphia, in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is now a violent hellhole because of them. That's why they've got, I think it's 70,000. I'm talking off the top of my head, but I think they have 70,000 signatures to get rid of Gascon in L.A. Police chiefs, prosecutors refuse to enforce those low-level quality of life crimes that make the whole neighborhood better. And so more gang members have guns. They kill people at will. This stuff worked. It worked for 20 years, and they've gotten rid of it because George Soros, sitting in his castle somewhere, can't stand the fact that life is unfair. I am all for government that lessens the unfairness of life, but we can't get rid of it, and we cannot deal with it by getting rid of the symptoms of unfairness. We can't get rid of it by getting rid of the actual crimes. Let's just read a little bit. He says, I'm going to go on funding these things, and the public likes what it's hearing. That's why they're throwing all these guys out. That's why they're recalling them in San Francisco and L.A. That's why DeSantis is throwing this guy out and people are cheering for him. It's because the public, says George Soros, likes what it gets. This op-ed is so delusional that there can only be two explanations. One is it's a troll. George Soros hates America. He's written that the main obstacle to a stable, is a quote, the main obstacle to a stable and just world is the United States. The United States continues to set the agenda for the world in spite of its loss of influence since 9/11 in the Bush administration. The Bush administration agenda is nationalistic. It emphasizes the use of force and ignores global problems. George Soros wants a global world. He wants an international world. He wants to get rid of the United States. So maybe he's laughing at us. Hey, I gotcha. Your cities are going to pot because of my prosecutors. I nailed you. Maybe he's laughing at it. Or maybe, and I think this is more likely, it's a fantasy. He's a rich man who guards his money in tax shelters but wants to tell us how to spend our money. He doesn't even really want us to have money. He wants to be in charge of the world because in his imagination, he's going to fix that injustice. That intolerable discrepancy is going to disappear because George Soros made so much money, he must be intelligent, and he's going to fix it all. Listen, do this thought experiment. Go in your room one day and think how you can make the world a perfect place. Imagine you have the power to make the world a perfect place. See how long it takes before you are imagining killing people, because there is no way to make the world a perfect place. You'll start to think, well, first I'll wipe out this group of people because they're causing these problems, and I'll wipe out that group of people, and you start to commit mass murder in your imagination. George Soros has destroyed the cities where he sent these guys, but I think in his imagination, I really do believe he is taking care of that intolerable discrepancy. He's solving it. He's nuts. More Klavan-y goodness to come, so like and subscribe to the Andrew Klavan Podcast.